Kolga is a political analyst focusing on Russian, Central and Eastern European issues. He joins us now from Toronto, Canada. Marcus, thanks so much for your time. Another term appears to be for Lukashenko, sixth one, but tensions are high, protests are expected, and still, this was the toughest test for him.
Absolutely. Lukashenko has been facing all sorts of protests over the past 2 months. In the lead up to this election, thousands of protesters have been arrested, hundreds of journalists. And today there were several independent journalists, including those from Russia, who were detained. And all foreign journalists were denied any accreditation to cover this election at all. And what we're hearing right now on Twitter and such, on social media, is that there are protests growing at this hour right now after the polls have closed. Belarusians coming out in record numbers, and they're not happy with the results that they've seen. And I think most of them believe that they were predetermined from the outset.
They are not happy, and also Tikhanovskaya, she said several times that she don't think that, you know, the election would be run fairly. Can we expect that her to challenge this result?
Well, I'm certain that the Belarusian opposition will definitely challenge this result. Some of the exit polls that we're seeing in foreign polling places, for instance, in the Belarusian embassy in Lithuania, demonstrates the exact opposite numbers, that 80%, over 80% of voters voted for Ms. Tikhanovskaya. And so the numbers that we're seeing, the official numbers, are being loudly challenged by foreign experts as well as opposition leaders. So we can expect, I think, like I said, we're seeing an increase in protests right now as we speak, and I'm sure we're going to see more protests in the days to come.
Tikhanovskaya emerged as Lukashenko's strongest rival in decades. We've seen those big crowds joining her rallies. Some say the biggest since the fall of the Soviet Union. Is this a sign that things have been very different in these last couple of months?
Oh, you're absolutely right. You know, over the past 2 months, we have seen a growing number of protests, and these are all grassroots protests. And this is what really has Lukashenko quite worried. I mean, there were challenges to his presidency in previous elections, most notably in 2010, when there was a violent crackdown. An opposition leader, Andrei Sannikov, was imprisoned for nearly a year. You know, things are different now because you're seeing mass numbers of people who have come out to the streets. And we know that Lukashenko is quite concerned about this. All day we've been seeing military equipment, tanks, pouring into various Belarusian cities, certainly in Minsk. There are reports right now on social media that Cortina wire is being set up around the presidential administration building. So he clearly understands that his power base and his position is quite shaky right now. And I think he's quite worried about what might happen in the coming days.
And I do want to ask you about Lukashenko's relationship with Russia. Appears to be that this also has changed. Russia will probably be happy with this result, but many would say that they do think that it's good that someone has challenged Lukashenko because this is how they will have more influence on him in the future.
You're absolutely right. Lukashenko has been playing the West off the Russians for the past number of years. And I think that Russia, clearly Vladimir Putin is getting a little bit fed up with Lukashenko. We just saw last week that 33 Wagner mercenaries, these are private Russian mercenaries, were arrested in Minsk. Clearly, it was a ploy by Lukashenko to try and demonstrate to his own people that Russia may be trying to interfere with the elections. And there's no doubt that Russia may have had a hand in interfering in some degree, or to some degree. But it's also clear that Vladimir Putin needs Lukashenko to remain in power. And because of his weakened position right now, I mean, despite the numbers that he's presented to us, he is a much weaker leader today than he was yesterday. And through that weakness, Vladimir Putin, I think, sees an opportunity to control Lukashenko down the road. So it's in Vladimir Putin's interest to keep Lukashenko in power, but to control him while he remains there.
Marcus Kolga, thanks so much for that. He's a political analyst and he joined us live from Toronto.